What's up, everybody? Welcome on into this edition of Warchant TV. He is Gene Williams, the founder and administrator of Warchant.com, the ultimate Seminoles sports source. Use that promo code Warchant30 for 30 free days of access. Try it. You will like it. I'm Aslan Hajavani. Thanks for being here. You're watching us on YouTube, obviously. If you could hit that thumbs up like button, we'd appreciate that. Maybe even subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's totally free. You can set your parameters on your notifications, however frequently or infrequently you want to be notified. We talked about on the podcast, Iris wrote some columns, but let's hear about it from you, Gene. You've been doing this the longest out of all of us. So what were your thoughts? I guess, here a few days to kind of marinate on it. Mike Norvell discussing what went down on the second scrimmage this past Saturday.
Yeah, I would first say, man, you and Corey did a great job in the Wake Up Warchant podcast, spending 45 plus minutes going through every aspect. Every word was dissected from the what we got from the post-scrimmage interviews on Saturday night. So I'd encourage anybody who wants more details of that. But I'm totally agree with you guys. It's a thing you don't want that. I remember Bobby Bowden saying this all the time for years. You never want the offense to be ahead of the defense at this time of year. So we got exactly that. Obviously, the defense is way ahead of the offense right now. They control the line of scrimmage. It didn't seem like the offense did much in this, but I think we've heard so many glowing reports out of the defense. I think this is almost more just the defense has gotten so much better. And to me, this is encouraging because all you got to do is look at the numbers the last couple seasons. Last season, Florida State was number 90 in total defense. I still have a hard time even saying that when you look across the roster and all the talent that just doesn't seem possible. And they were 80 the years before. Just be a top 40 defense. It seems like they could just fall over themselves and be a top 40 defense with all this talent. And we're hearing positive. It's not just one segment. You're hearing about the defensive line. You're hearing about the ends with Kane Doe. Today, we're going to talk about it a little bit more. The linebackers have been really good across the board. There's a lot of talent coming back there. The secondary is just oozing with talent and depth across the board. It's a lot of future NFL guys there. So to me, that part was very encouraging. Sure, we'd like to see more positive signs from the offense, but man, you can win a lot of games. You talk about, you bring up Dan Mullen and some of those Florida teams, man. They've won some games with some ugly offenses, but you're solid on defense and solid on special teams, man. You can win a lot in college football.
Yeah. Monday, also the start of fall semester for students at Florida State, and also means that they're pretty much in season now. Fall camp has started. They're down to 20 hours where they can work per week with the football team. We spoke to Coach Norvell, a couple of the players. He updated us on the injuries. Sounds like the defense is getting a little bit healthier. And also maybe people had question about a certain quarterback not being seen on some of these scrimmage highlights, and he provided some insight into that, right?
Yeah, it was good to hear Keyshawn Helton, Curtis Fan, and Corey Durden were all back full speed, which is great to know. Like we talked about, all that depth on defense, that's just giving him more and more depth, getting all those guys, key components, contributors back in the lineup. But yeah, I had to ask because we kind of saw. When you saw the highlights that you posted on Warchant.com, I put some photos up for our subscribers from what we get from FSU Sports Information on the Tribal Council, and there's been a glaring okay, there's a bunch of James Blackman shots. There's Tate Rodemaker. We know Chubba Purdy's out. Well, where's Jordan Travis? Well, it's pretty obvious that he did not scrimmage, and I had to just get confirmation from Coach Norvell during the Monday interviews, and he confirmed he's got something going on. He didn't sound like it was a serious deal, kind of day-to-day in and out. Maybe he's dealing with a minor injury issue, who knows? But the bottom line, he's still in there. He's making progress. So it's still probably a 3-team race, but man, if you want to compete for that starting job and you miss, which is really the last big scrimmage, full team scrimmage, it definitely makes it a little bit more difficult. So I think really we go to that first game, it's a 2-team race, and obviously James Blackman at this point pretty obviously is ahead of the curve here. About 2 weeks till we get to that first game.
Also over on Warchant.com right now, the roundtable discussion you, Ira, Corey, and myself had. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on in terms of maybe things that have surprised you as we pivot to the linebackers who are coming up in a minute?
That's a good question. It was interesting in those post interviews. Again, you watch those on Warchant. Just the adamant how Dillingham was, how upset he was with the offense. I don't know if we've really seen that side of him so far. He seemed just kind of a nice, kind of goofy guy, likes to joke around a lot, but man, he was all business. He was not happy. He wouldn't throw us a bone when we tried to ask about anything positive about the offense. So that told me that this coach is going to get after it. You guys talked about it in the podcast. There's a little bit of a different feeling. The defense is making mistakes. There's too many negative plays, it sounds like. But there's a different dynamic with the staff. You get the feeling they're going to be able to correct these things, where obviously we saw the last staff did not do a great job at correcting mistakes. So, I mean, to me, that's just that this staff is not satisfied. They recognize the problem. They're going to work to correct it.
You mentioned the previous staff. I think probably the quote of the day on Monday was a linebacker who's been around here for a long time, having to deal with a lot of different coaching staffs, trying to tell us, in his words, just how excited he is about the changes that are occurring right now within the program.
It almost brings tears to my eyes to think about the difference of how that position room feels now from when I got there. No offense to any of the older guys, but it's just a lot closer. And those boys are great followers. They're great teammates.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and that really dovetails exactly what we wrote about in the roundtable, which you can read on Warchant.com if you're a subscriber. One of the questions was, are you buying into the linebackers? Well, Mr. Warner's buying in, and he knows he's there. And I'll tell you, and I wrote about this. I was really intrigued because, again, I referenced how bad the defense was last year, and I did a story a couple months ago looking at all the advanced analytics we get from Pro Football Focus. And one thing that struck me was when I looked at all three of the main linebackers that are back, Warner, Rice, Amari Gaynor, all those guys, if you look at during the second half of the season, their numbers started to spike. They started to put up some pretty good advanced analytics number down the stretch. And I'm like, okay, you've got all these guys back, got experience with them. You're bringing in a good linebacker class. What we've heard nothing but rave reports about Steven Dix, Kalen DeLoach. So it gives you some nice depth there. First time you got some experience returning. And look, I like Raymond Woody. I think he was a good guy. I think he was a pretty good recruiter on the road. But I don't know, really, an elite linebackers coach. Man, the Chris Marv. I mean, you cannot interact with that guy and be incredibly impressed. And you hear these linebackers, you hear Leonard Warren, you hear these other guys we get to talk to. You can tell there's a palpable difference in how they feel like they're being coached right now. So you just have the feeling, man, these linebackers could take a step up, and that's a good combination. That defensive line is as dominating as we're hearing, and you get some linebackers that are on the same page in their discipline, and they're making plays, and they're going sideline to sideline. And it's a beautiful thing.
What about the offensive line, though, Gene? Linebackers is all well and good, but everybody wants to know about the offensive line. Mike Norvell mentioned they're still working on finding their starting five. We offered some advice in terms of who we thought might be the starting five. As we sit here right now, still a few weeks away from the opener against Georgia Tech, and just in terms of what we've been hearing from the coaching staff and what you've seen in the past, who seemed to be the most likely five to start against that Georgia Tech team?
Well, I guess we can give away a little bit on the round table, and the old adage, great minds think alike, Aslan, because we had the same starting five. Nice. Which to me, it seems like that's definitely trending that way. Again, something could change or there could be an injury, but man, it sure looks like we got. I mean, we know the tackles are going to be Love Taylor, Darius Washington. There's no way you can keep Lucas off the field. He's probably your most talented offensive lineman. I mean, the big question at center. I just think it seems like we're getting a little bit more positive stuff about Baselli. And if you're going to play someone at guard, it seems like Babian might be a little bit easier transition for him to play some guard if he does that. And I was really impressed by Brady Scott the other day, man. I've interviewed him several times throughout the years. I've just never seen him that positive and acting like he's just bought all in. That he just seems like a completely different attitude, different person to me. So I really like that. But I think the big question is what happens after that? What happens to that starting five? Yeah. And it was interesting today to kind of dovetail on the interviews we got. He mentioned a couple freshmen. I did not throw one of those freshman tackles in there. And it was Thomas Schrader and Robert Scott were mentioned in there as, maybe one of those guys is going to become that eighth player, because I think we're going to go probably Maurice Smith. And then if Babian or Baselli doesn't win the job, they're that seventh. And then who's that eighth? It's got to be a tackle because you have to have somebody to back up. So maybe it is. I mean, Darius Washington came out as a freshman last year. Maybe one of these freshmen could do the job, because that's one of the disappointments. I have not heard anything about Chaz Neal or about some of these other guys that we were kind of hoping would step up and maybe take on that role to be a viable backup if FSU needs it at tackle.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they mentioned, I think, on signing day just how high they were on Robert Scott. So kind of nice to hear them be able to evaluate a guy, have really high expectations, and it sounds like he's been able to live up to them so far. So that's always an encouraging thing. All right, plenty more going on over at warchant.com. Again, we've had 3 player interviews. Coach Mike Norvell spoke again to the media. Ira Schofel's working on something for you folks, so you can definitely view it over there. Again, Gene's here giving you all this free information that's on the website. Hit the thumbs up button. You should like it. Gene, thanks for your time as always, man.
Thank you, Aslan. Have a good one, buddy, and a belated happy birthday.